Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of March 11th through the 17th. So there's not a real lot going on this week. So what I'm going to look at is Venus changing signs going into Pisces, which is the sign it's exalted in, and it's also the sun's annual conjunction to Neptune this week. And actually, there's a couple other things too that trigger some of the energy that was going on last week that's going to kind of bring it back, kind of like cycle it back into this week. So, and then one other thing I want to mention about Saturn hitting one of the asteroids. So a few things, but not as big of a week as normal. So just to get this a little bit first, a little business first, the Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week. And if you have a YouTube account, you can become a follower if you like what you're seeing. And don't forget to turn on your notifications after you do that. It'll let you know when the blog is posted. And remember, the blog is available on all kinds of podcasts too. It was a podcast before, an audio podcast before a video, so it's still distributed out there by Buzzsprout. A bunch of them pick it up. If you can't find it on one, just go to another. Look, I know Apple I does it, so iPodcast does it, so look up Astrological Winds channel and you'll find it there. Also, I do have an Astrological Winds channel Instagram page, so if you have an Instagram account, you can become a follower there, and that's another spot where I post the link to the blog. Um, and sometimes post extra stuff too. So it's kind of cool. Like, if you want to check that out, like sometimes I'll put some commentary during the week in there that's not video or audio. It's just stuff you can read. And then one other place I do put it is on my Facebook, private Facebook account. So you can friend me. It's Matthew with two T's, and then it's Lawton, Lauten, and and you'll come up in your newsreel. But the best place really to find it, if you don't do the YouTube thing, is on my website, which is www.astrologicalwinds.com. The link to the YouTube video one is embedded there every week by me. Oh, incidentally, I forgot to. A few weeks ago, I introduced a new page on my website too. I call it the Sky and Earth calendar, and it's just looking every week at different astronomical things and holidays that are Earth type holidays and stuff. So that's something cool to check out. People have been liking that, so you might want to, once again, check the website out for that, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And also, the other thing is that's where you'll find the menu for all the readings that I do. And that's the best way you guys can support me, besides passing this link along to somebody else that or giving a donation to the blog. The best way you can support me is I am a professional astrologer. So when you or someone really needs that reading, please, come and check it out and make contact with me. I do have a sliding scale too, so the prices are there. I can work with you, so just let me know. No hurting opening up a dialogue, right? So, and remember, that is the one thing I do ask, is that you pass this link along to someone else if you're enjoying what you see. And remember, if you're not big on astrology terms, don't get lost in the terms. Listen to my interpretations. That's what's important to know about the energy of this week so that you can use it to your best advantage. All right, let me get into the astrology now. Like I said, not a real lot this week, but we do have one of the inners changing signs, and that's Venus. And she's going to be really happy about this sign change, especially after like the last couple signs that she's been in. I mean, she doesn't mind Aquarius, but Pisces she loves. This is the planet that traditionally she's exalted in. And this is a time where the higher octave of love really comes in. Remember, Venus is the planet of relationships and love, and when it's in Pisces, the most collective sign, it comes out as unconditional love. It comes out as tolerance. It comes out as empathy and understanding and compassion for others. So it's a very, very like idealistic sign for sure and place for Venus to be in. It like has a romantic way of interpreting and looking at life, and that's why Venus really likes to be there. It really sees beautiful things and will live in a like kind of dreamy, almost fantasy world. But what does that do? Is it really fires up another good part of Venus's energy, and that's creativity. It brings us a lot of imagination, it brings us a lot of inspiration, and then we get creative with that, like either in our relationships or in artistic output, or just like being artistic about whatever we do. I've said this so many times, your life is art. And if you haven't interpreted that yet, figure that out for yourself. Anything you do can be, put your creative juice into. And this is like, what this energy really supports this on a very holistic level. It's like we can find ways that are very unifying. And so it can, bring a lot of creative output to people who have artistic streaks. And then the other thing too is it will, because it is connected to that higher love, like I said, it makes us very sensitive to others. We have great emotional intuition, and that it really is like coming up from a higher place, like a spiritualized version of love, really. So what that can lead to for some of us too is really like, going into like some kind of spiritual journey too, or spiritual relationships, and even with group, Pisces is more of a collective sign too. So a lot of this stuff could be like not only, but it is great for romance too. That's another reason why Venus likes Pisces too. It is another place where you can find someone who really aligns with your ideals and get into like a very romantic kind of relationship that feels really satisfying and deep on many levels. So there's a lot. And then the other thing, remember Venus has a lot to do with money too. And when it's in Pisces, it's a time when we can be very wise about our investments with art, actually, like where we can, buy or invest or make art that's going to appreciate in value over time. And so really, really sweet energy to go in for the next 3 weeks or so for Venus in Pisces before it goes to Aries, where it will be in one of the signs that it's weaker in. So like I said, really nice energy. And that's starting, like I said, today, Monday. So it's really, to me, the biggest event of the week. So like I said, there was a couple things, if you remember last week, that were challenging aspects that we had. And this week, there's a couple planets that are gonna, it's Mercury and Venus, that are gonna re-involve themselves or get involved with those aspects as they're separating. And what that means is it's gonna cycle some of that stuff back, some of the debris of whatever those aspects manifested as in your life last week is probably going to be cycled back a little bit this week. And that starts tomorrow on Tuesday, when Mercury actually gets in between Mars and Uranus. It semi squares both Mars and Uranus. So if you remember this past weekend, there was this very, very explosive Mars Uranus energy, and I talked about it last week. And however that manifested for you, this Mercury is going to cycle it back around this time of the year. I mean, this time of the week, and it's gonna, it's probably not going to be as intense. It's kind of more like, here's some of the consequences. Here's some of the debris from what went on last week, and so like, it can bring, when Mercury gets in between these two, like I said, remember from last week, Mars, Uranus together is very explosive energy, right? So when Mercury gets in between the two of them, it can get really edgy in a semi square on both sides, because there's a lot of frustration over whatever happened. There's actually like this edginess that brings up like a nervous tension, and this, and like a lot of things going through your mind, and a lot of like, maybe like just desires to move forward and act on it, but realizing that, there's like a block. So it's kind of like this energy is like, feeling a little bit blocked up. It's getting a little bit edgy again. And it's interesting, I mean, we can use it, once again, just like last week, if we can control it, we can use it and, bring some success through things that we're changing around us. But we have to, once again, be very, very careful. This is another time when we can be very prevalent to being too impulsive with the decisions we make or the actions we take, and we can end up hurting our body somehow. We can injure ourselves or re-aggravate an injury, or we can even get into an accident by just like not like paying attention enough to what's going on. And like sometimes when Mercury gets in between Mars and Uranus and there's something like that, it can be some quick condition that's come up in our body that requires some quick response, that requires like science, technology. So literally in our modern day and age, maybe something like needing surgery or some kind of treatment very quickly if it becomes a physical thing. But in general, there's going to be like, this edginess, this like, just whatever bothered us or came up through that Mars Uranus square, it's kind of like, got us in a frustrating position where we're kind of feeling stuck. And the mind is like chasing its own tail, trying to figure a way out. And there's none that's developed yet. And at the same time, there's this energy of like still wanting to push forward. When Mars part comes in, the ego gets very involved. It gets very married to the way we're seeing things, and many times is unable to stop itself from, just impulsively moving forward and then kind of messing ourselves up. So we have to be very aware that energy is very prevalent still in the early part of this week, and in particular tomorrow on Tuesday. And then the other one that comes up this week that's triggering one of the troubling more things of this week and month, and I've talked about it in the last 2 weeks and the last two blogs actually, is now Venus is going to get involved with that Chiron North Node conjunction in Aries, which I said was one of the two or three biggest things this month going on. And, and that, it's a very tricky aspect to work because it's really about self responsibility for our own destiny, our own healing, our own path. But at the same time, like if we take that too far, we can get very, very, you know, too impulsive, too unthought out of, and cause a lot of pain and wounding, not only to others, but to ourselves. So, right now, Venus, like I said, just going into Pisces, is going to actually do the same thing that Mercury did with Mars and Uranus. It's going to semi square the conjunction. And what is that showing? That there's a lot of frustration still in certain relationships that we have that are like, we know, like they're destined, like they're part, like it could be family, it could be some group we've been belonged to for a long time, or someone that we just know, we were meant to spend a lot of time in this life with, and has a lot of influence, when they do things over us. And so there's a frustration level that's really built up in that, where you are feeling the pain because of what that other person is deciding to do in their life, right? Through the attachment you have with them. So that's like where the frustration comes in, because there's really not much you can do about it. And in fact, even if you try to talk to people about this stuff and this energy, more likely the receptiveness is not going on. That Aries energy is so like streamlined and subjective of itself that it's having a really hard time. And this, once again, to me, shows that, separations are possible, with certain people or associations with different groups. Just, disagreements at the very least within relationships and groups that, that are hard to right now move on from, and hard to like, get flexible and come to some kind of way of dealing with it. So very, like I said, these two are, both, bring back some of this stuff from last week and make it very like sore this week. And a lot of it, I think, is aftermath of whatever these events may have already peaked, but this is like kind of, these the consequences of those events. And interestingly enough, this next one, I don't talk too much about the asteroids, but this one's, especially with a week where we don't have a lot, this one's a pretty other big one too. On Saturday this week, Saturn, one of the outer planets, is opposite Juno, which is one of the main four asteroids. And you may have heard me talk about Juno before, representing the partner, basically, and in particular intimate partnerships. Like in a female archetype based on the Western civilization model, that would be the wife, and turn it around in this day and age, husband wife. But like any kind of intimate partnerships, really, Juno represents. It can be even people you've been in business with a long time, things like that. But basically what's happening when you have an opposition to Saturn is that you're running into people's limited belief systems, your partner's limited belief systems, that are bringing up insecurities and fears, most likely in them, that you in the opposition have to respond to, have to make some kind of decision about. And it can pull you back from wanting to make a serious commitment to those people, and pull you, and may even pull you out of like old partnerships. I just talked about that with Venus and the North Node in Chiron having that kind of energy too. So this is another one where it's like, wow, maybe there's certain old partnerships that, they're just so blocked that I can't see myself from being able to commit to that. Now, the other thing is Saturn has a lot to do with the real world, right? And the real world may be what's blocking the partnership from being more intimate too. Just whatever your real life you're having to deal with, the duties and obligations that you may have to work or your family or to society itself may stop certain partnerships from having the ability to physically actually get closer to, so that can be very frustrating. Obviously, it feels like, repressed desires, basically. And it can even trigger like stuff like codependency issues, like where you're like, just really looking at it. But it's just really hard right now under that energy to form a really solid relationship the way you would want it to be. It's like there's just too much reality interfering with that. So I can see that really playing in, like I said, with that Venus North Node Chiron this week, where there can be a lot of relationships that you're just realize, this is never going to be the thing it's going to be. And like, how do I reset that from there so that it stops being, painful or restricting or as so, I mean, I don't think you get the 100%, unless you're like actually going to physically remove yourself from situations with people and, block your phone or whatever, like, but I mean, but like, how do you find, like some new balance with that? And then to me, the other really big thing this week comes next Sunday, and that's the sun's annual conjunction to Neptune. And in Pisces, the sign that Neptune just, enjoys being in the most. And that really ups our sensitivity to all kinds of subtle worlds, like the emotional world of others. We feel, just feeling our way through life, using our own emotional intuition to feel through that day and dictate, how we're going to respond to life that day. But also like, just a very sensitivity to other worlds, psychic energy, like other beings that normally don't talk, your language in a linear way. You can have like this very merging, unifying energy that breaks down barriers when the sun and Neptune get together. So that what happens is it really stokes up empathy and compassion. And just like that Venus in Pisces, there lots of Pisces energy going on right now. And so like a lot of ability to understand where other people are coming from, to have more tolerance for them, to have more empathy and compassion for them. But you don't want to take it too far where we don't have boundaries. But like, this is a time where we're willing to do kind of like charitable work, things like that. And, just really trying to inject our ideals into reality. Now, that's one of the problems of the Sun Neptune, is we may take that too far. We may find out that our ideals don't fit into reality very well, and that we kind of like are a little bit in a fantasy idealistic world when we're in that condition. So we can be like a little bit of, just like a little bit too soft. And what's really good about Sun Neptune, and it's nice that it's on the weekend, is it's a great time to actually, retreat from that real world, because we are open to these other worlds. And if we are dealing with that, it's going to shut down a lot of that sensitivity. So if we can get into a place where we can be in a quieter space, where we can be with people who are quieter, more aware. And, that's something, another thing Venus and Pisces likes. Venus and Pisces likes mellow friends, ones who are not, they're kind of chilled out, and, there's not, they're not making waves. So like, Sun and Pisces, the same thing, especially when it's conjunct Neptune, it's going to want to like, just really seeks a place where it's quieter, more meditative, more contemplative. And that can be alone, or in Pisces, that can be in a group that has very similar values and ideals that you have, and you can share that energy. So very interesting. And then, there's one other thing too on Sunday that I want to mention, because even though it's a semi-square, Mercury is semi-square Venus. And the reason that's really important in astrology is if you understand how astrology works and the way we see things from the earth from a geodesic point of view. Mercury and Venus, from the ways we see them, never get very far from one another in the sky, because they're actually closer to the sun than we are. So they're always going to be close to the place where we see that where the sun is, and they're always going to be close to one another in as far as the amount of degrees in the zodiac. They don't. So the really traditionally the only tough aspect that they can form is a semi-square between one another, because they can't ever get to a square's 90 degrees from one another from our geodesic standpoint of looking at things. So the semi-square is actually the toughest aspect that they have in relation to one another. And it's not a super tough aspect, actually. It's actually relatively light-hearted. But because Venus is involved, there's relationship disagreements that we are clear that we see that we're coming from a different point of view. And this is, most likely even with people who are very close to us, our family, our loved ones, our partners, but we are, it's very clear that, there's some disagreements that's causing some discord and frustration and irritation. And, because of the lightheartedness of this, and Mercury being the mind and intellect, and being able to inject some objectivity into Venus, that we can actually usually find a flexible agreement, even agree to disagree, so that we can still all get along. So that's, a really, really interesting aspect like that. But it makes us very social. We're very lighthearted. We want to socialize. It's a nice, nice with the Sun Neptune on that level. If anything, sometimes people overdo it with Mercury, Venus when they're social, like kind of like become a little bit too much of the life of the party, or dominate the conversation too much, or the energy too much, or maybe become a little bit arrogant about, what they're talking about, and, a little bit coercive. The other thing with Mercury, Venus is we can be a little bit, impulsive with our money, spend it on things that we don't necessarily need, that they're just there to kind of like, once again, massage this fun, light-hearted part of us, but it definitely gives us the ability to be eloquent with our words. But for the most part, because of the light-hearted part of it, we don't really go into the deep emotional territory. Usually we kind of keep it on the more mellow side. Once again, the Pisces be having that sensitivity, really likes, relationships just going mellow and chill and not having to be, you know, overboard or blow hard about anything really. And the sensitivity will have us, even distance ourselves from people who are like that, So yeah, so not, like I said, not a super lot going on this week, but like definitely, some interesting stuff. And I think, the cycling back of those two energies in the middle of the week kind of is going to be one of the more challenging things. And otherwise we can really enjoy the Piscean energy that's going on right now. And with the Neptune being involved too, have some really experiences, relationships, creativity that appeals to our ideals this week. And that feels really good. That feels really good. It spurs us to be creative, that we can, like I said, turn our life into art, turn our relationships into art, and that kind of thing, So really, really like that a lot. So next week, um, we're going to go into the equinox. We've got our equinox coming up. So, sun going into Aries. And so we'll probably take a little look at the equinox chart too. And Mars is also going to change signs next week. It's going to go into Pisces, where it can, join a lot of that Piscean energy that I was talking about this week. And, join Venus in Pisces and continue a lot of that Piscean energy, especially while the sun and Mercury are in Aries. So bring a nice little balance between the self, the sign that represents the most of the self, Aries, and the sign that represents the most in the collective energy, Pisces. So two and two on each side will bring a nice balance next week. So, all right, we'll talk about that next week. But this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free video blog I've been doing for years. It's been a few years on YouTube now. It was podcast before that. It was a written blog before that on the web. If you like what you see, please become a follower. If you have a YouTube account, turn your notifications on, and please repay me by passing the blog's link on to somebody else right now when you get off. Or even better, if you'd like, you when you're ready to get a reading, or someone else wants a reading. I am a professional astrologer. I've been doing readings for over 20 years. Was trained professionally for 7 years. Got all kinds of different readings. Go to my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. The whole menu is there. Like I said, I have sliding scales too. You can talk to me, open up a dialogue about it. If you have a group that's interested in, lectures, classes, things like that, there's also information on that there. Ways to contact me there. My Earth and Sky calendar every week is updated there. I'll be adding more content to that website as time goes on. So check in with that. And, and then the other thing is, if you would like to give a currency donation to this blog, I really appreciate that. People do it. You know who you are. I really appreciate you. My Venmo handle is at the symbol A, Matthew with two T's and a capital M, hyphen in the middle, and then Lauten, capital Lauten. Any amount helps out, even a couple dollars helps out. So you'd like to do that. And, and in the spring, look forward to, I'm going to have a new thing come up once we go past some of the energies that are here now. That'll, maybe be something that you'll be more wanting to be more involved in too. So, look forward to that. I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, but yeah, until next week, we'll see you all, and please pass the link along. I really appreciate you all for doing that, and I will see you all next week.